First of all, I'm really happy to be moderating this for your consideration panel with some of the extraordinary people involved in The Handmaid's Tale. I'm a ginormous fan of the show. And so this is a real thrill for me. And I thought we'd start this conversation sort of where the end of season 4 ends up, where Fred and Serena asked June for forgiveness. And Bruce, did you imagine this turn of events when you were thinking about the show and watching the evolution of this storyline and these characters? Did you kind of predict that this would happen, or how did that work for you?
Well, I think the show's based on how June feels genuinely versus how she's allowed to express herself. So we know how she feels about these people, and we know, if ever given freedom to express herself, how she would express herself. So I think there's an inevitability about it, whether it's expressed or unexpressed. What this show is about is her bringing these people to terms with what they've done. Whether she gets the chance to do it or not is the question. But that building up that argument in your head, saying this is why they're wrong and I'm right, and is what the show is about. So I think that whether or not we get there character-wise or story-wise, it was always the clash that was, the clash of worldviews that the show was built on.
And Joe, were you surprised that your character had this redemptive arc? And how did you feel when you saw how the commander evolved?
Well, I love the idea that he goes through the journey and ends in a place of redemption, seemingly, and how paradoxical that he might get to that place of clarity, even if it's momentarily, and have it snatched away somewhat in the finale. But it was lovely for him to come face to face, and I so enjoyed that scene with Lizzie where he apologizes, and there are parts of that apology which are genuine, and there's parts of old Fred, but there's still parts of the sort of predator inside all of that apology as well, and sort of reclaiming the narrative in his own predatory fashion. But it was lovely to go on that journey, and the season is really about that, about sort of relinquishing and reflecting. But can this character really change his spots? I don't know, but he came close, which was really lovely to be invited down that road.
What about for you, Yvonne? Did you envision sort of what that moment would be like for Serena?
Kind of, although I don't, just because she's, having this moment with June, I don't necessarily believe that she has come full circle, I think she's just so, she just goes from moment to moment, kind of figuring out what's going to be the most ideal situation for me right now. And her ideal situation is that she doesn't want to have the stress and the regrets or any kind of remorse of what she's been doing with June this whole time, I feel like. And so what's convenient for her is to apologize and beg for forgiveness. And although I do think there is a huge element of truth in it, I don't know that it comes from that genuine place of I genuinely feel horrible for what I did. I think it's more, I just need you to forgive me so I can have a comfortable pregnancy. You know what I mean?
So it's self-serving.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what's in Bruce's brain about that. But that's how I felt.
Bruce, do you want to chime in?
Well, I think people don't change very much or very easily, and I think people change quickly and easily on television. But what Yvonne says is exactly right. It's in the moment we make lots of decisions and we say lots of things, but we don't, as humans, we don't change that quickly. And I think the show is frustrating in the same way that people in our lives are frustrating, that they don't change quickly enough, and that more people don't get out of North Korea. But those things are complicated parts of the real world. And as much as we'd like Lawrence and the characters that seem to be on an edge, Lawrence and Lydia and Yvonne, or everybody, I guess, Joe, you want them to pick the good side and toss away the bad side, but there is no such thing, and it doesn't happen, and they are who they are. And I don't know very many people who have truly had the kind of regret in their life for the things that these people have done. I don't know that there's enough regret to muster. So.
And Lizzie, I don't know, there was a scene, I wish I had written down what you said about what had been taken away and the power of men and sort of systemic issues with gender and sexism. I don't know, that really resonated with me. Are you in the middle of sometimes saying your lines and thinking, yes, I feel what June feels about the state of the world?
Yeah, all the time, whether, or even just, sometimes globally, but also sometimes just on a personal level. She's such a personal character to me. And I've put so much of myself into her. And at this point, there's a great thing that happens when you're on a show for a while, which is the relationship between you and the writers and the showrunner becomes very fluid. And, at first you're doing what they're writing, and then they're sort of writing to what you're doing. And it kind of goes back and forth in this wonderful way. All the time. And sometimes other characters too will say things that that really, really resonate with me. Lawrence, often when he's speaking about June, it resonates with me. I learn a lot about June from the other characters, whether I'm in the scene or not.
Madeline, let me ask you about Janine, because she has quite an adventure in this season, and we learn a lot more about her backstory, which I really appreciated and enjoyed. And I'm curious if you did as well, and how it impacted the way you played her from that moment on. Because who knew?
Yeah, I mean, I tried for so long for the first 3 seasons really to not make any real decisions about who I thought Janine was, just because I knew that eventually we would find out, and I wanted to be able to just like soak up anything that Bruce or JC who had written the episode. I wanted to just kind of fully embrace that, and I was really glad and very, very proud to be able to tell this kind of story, this storyline for Janine. Our relationship, the relationship between June and Janine, and just everything, it just colored so many things for me to get this backstory. And then the confrontation between June and Janine, everything just kind of became a little brighter to me. About Janine, she's always been like a big part of my life and of my heart, and she's just tattooed in there now, really, especially after this, doing that episode and episode 5 as well.
It's interesting, Bruce, how the writers and you and everyone who's putting this together, how you figure out when you tell a backstory of a character. I know I really enjoyed hearing more about Serena and what she was like before Gilead became Gilead. And how do you determine whose past or whose history you're going to mine, and why?
I think we'd mine everybody's if we had the time. I mean, they're all extraordinary actors, and we're curious about their backstories. And I think that Maddie, as much as she was trying not to decide, as Lizzie was saying, Maddie was telling us, all the writers, what Janine's backstory was over the last 3 years, slowly. So she was making decisions. But I think all the backstories, and from the response from the audience, are super appealing and satisfying. I just wanted to say, this year in particular, under COVID, Maddie talks about that episode like it's a normal episode. That episode was incredibly difficult under COVID, and the 9 scenes we had of her in the past ended up being 3 scenes, and everything changed all the time. And she was an absolute professional, and also managed to get as much out of the story as we would have gotten in the longer version, in the shorter version. And that's a testament to her and Christina, the director, and everybody else. It's a remarkable performance under under normal circumstances, it's remarkable. This year, it's breathtaking what she was able to do. So I'm in awe of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're like, put it some
Get
more.
that in, honey.
Cut it out.
Bruce, my turn, hon. Come on now.
Yeah.
Well,
And I want to talk to you about Aunt Lydia, because there's a little crack in Gilead for finally for her. Can you talk about the evolution of her character and sort of the reason behind her increased humanity in this season, if you could call it that?
Well, love is love, isn't it? And she loves Janine and she loves June. And as much as she likes to put it in any other fashion she possibly can, the truth of the matter is relationships are profoundly important to her. So I think if love creeps its way in, walls will begin to crumble, whether she would like them to or not. And what to me was astonishing about this season for Lydia, and I give this to the writers, and I give this to the other actors, and to Elisabeth directing, is that things that utterly surprised me, that took me totally off guard in the way they appeared in the scene, which is to say from Lydia, which I didn't have my hand on, because season 4, you can take your hand off, because by now you know her, she knows you. And on the good day, she's going to talk to you and say, don't worry about it, I've got it. And that's what happened season 4 for me. And working with Elisabeth, who knows her well, and I know her well, and I love her, and she loves me. Sorry to turn this into a soap opera, but the point I'm making is something happens there, and that's trust. And then you know, okay, let's drop the barriers and get it done. That's what thrilled me, is to let her come up on her own and see where she goes. So that just knocked me out. Very grateful for it.
Wow. Lizzie, would you like to comment on that?
Sorry, kid. No pressure, doll. None at all.
No, I mean, I had this incredible gift with directing, which was working with these actors. And it truly is kind of extraordinary when you work with people for 3 years and a certain amount of episodes, and then you put on a different hat, and all of a sudden it was just, I had an entirely new appreciation for how incredibly gifted they all are. And the trust that they gave me as a director, especially on my first time out in episode 3, I'll never forget. The support they gave me, I'll never forget. And to Anne's point, you know, I've seen not just what you see in the episode on Hulu, but I've seen all of the takes that they do before that. I've seen all of the other things they've tried. I've seen all of the things that worked and didn't work. And we've had all these conversations. So I did feel like there was an element of knowing them as not just their characters, but as actors that was helpful to us in our kind of new relationship.
Bradley, do you feel, I mean, I'm curious about, you've done a lot of different shows, and is there something unique about this project for you and about this group of people? And I don't know how serendipitous everything seems to have been, with a lot of hard work, of course, behind the scenes. But I wonder if you could describe for me the specialness of this for you.
Well, I feel like an obnoxiously lucky actor who's had some wonderful experiences. But there is absolutely something unique to me about, you know, it's always alchemy. And the feeling on the set, it's a weirdly loving, gentle, humorous set, and I think that tone is set by Lizzie who, while she does Sophie's Choice, the series, is maybe the least pretentious actor I've ever worked with. There is, we're aware, unfortunately, uh, that we're doing a show about a worst case scenario about something that is all too familiar to us now. This is another one of those moments where I think as a country and all across the world, we're being reminded that misogyny, racism, sexism, fascism, they're always in the next room doing push-ups. And to be able to be part of a show that is saying something on top of it being this kind of extraordinary, for me, a very lucky person, creative experience. There is, I know, doing stuff with Lizzie, which is an extraordinary thing, given the fact that I met her when she was 17. There's on this show, the takes that work. You and I felt this with Anne too. It's like you get surprised. You're surprised by what's happening, and it's a function of the writing. I also love what Anne was saying, combined with what Bruce is saying. In a lesser show, people have epiphanies and become heroes. That's an insult to what a character like June is up against. And what Anne just said, I think, is really true. Is that I start feeling this kind of love, for Aunt Lydia, who I begin to feel to understand absolutely for June in a way that mirrors what I feel about working with Lizzie again after all these years. Some reporters said, what does Lawrence feel about her? And I'm like, he loves her. He doesn't know, but she's leading him. He doesn't even know it. But I realize I feel about June. Lawrence feels about June the way I feel about Lizzie. It's like it's the way I feel about my grown-up children. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe what you became. And I watched that episode. I texted Lizzie. I said, okay, so you can direct too. Like, what's next? The fucking cello? I mean, it was incredible. But there's something about this show that I love that Anne was talking about, which is somewhere in the solution to these intractable problems, humanity and love, in the darkest of circumstances, can shine through.
That was beautifully said, Bradley.
Now we can all go home because
I know, I was like, are we good? We're done here.
No, because I want to talk to Max and Mckenna, because Mckenna, I mean, first of all, hi, here you are with this extraordinary group of actors. And how old are you, Mckenna?
I'll be 15 in June.
Oh my God.
Holy cow. Okay. So what can you describe what it was like for you? First of all, your character is so fascinating to me, but just the very idea of coming into this group of professionals as a almost 15-year-old, right?
Oh,
What can you share with us just what this experience has been like for you?
Well, I am new here. It's interesting. I haven't really had a chance to talk to most of the people here yet. So it's definitely a little bit scary because in preparing for the role, I binge watched Handmaids, and there's not one bad actor on the show. So I did not want to be the person to break that perfect track record. It's really been a great experience to be able to be a part of a show that speaks out about so many topics and something that reaches such a wide audience. Especially being able to work with Miss Lizzie as a director, that was an incredible experience. I can't put it into words. It was absolutely magnificent, but it's been something that I really hope that I get to come back to, and I've loved it.
And when you said it, you know, your character is interesting because she's bratty and brave at the same time. And how did you wrap your head around kind of showing the many sides of her?
Well, like you said, she is really fascinating. And I think it's less bratty, it's just more of this, it's figuring out how to mix how mature and like she is the mistress of this household, but at the end of the day, she is still an abused young lady. It's trying to figure out how to mix together her immaturity and her being the brave young Gilead survivor that she is. I did watch a lot of interviews with young women who had been abused or had gone through situations like she did. So I wanted to make sure that I accurately portrayed her, because there is no one way to play Mrs. Keese or to play her abuse, and I just wanted to make sure that I definitely did it right. So
Can I just say, at 15, I'm pretty blown away by you right now. And Bruce, you need to keep her around. And I think regardless, you have an incredible future ahead of you. Maybe you could like anchor a newscast. I don't know, but your acting was phenomenal, and you were obviously wise beyond your years. Max, I haven't forgotten about you. Hi, Max. You know, I think probably with your character, that again must have been a real challenge, because you had to incorporate almost two different people in your role, staying in Gilead and yet wanting the best for June, and also having this streak of humanity.
Well, I loved doing the season. I think we all did. There was so much more to explore with all of these characters, and Nick can be very opaque, right? He's a sort of spy on a spy on a spy, and at the same time, I see him through rose-tinted lenses, and have always been quietly hoping that his moral compass is in the right place. And I was very relieved this year. The true north seems to be heading in the right direction. And just to echo what everyone's been saying, I think, you know, getting to work with Lizzie as a filmmaker pushed all of us. You know, I think it's the best work I've done on the show, and a lot of people's best work I've done on the show. She had a way of sort of extracting something from us that was really exciting, and it was a joy to do it.
Joe, I want to have you talk a little bit about playing someone, and maybe Yvonne, you could chime in on someone who is just so awful and so evil. And
are you sure? Are we talking about the same character? I'm not sure.
and I don't know, does that start to kind of permeate your psyche a little bit? And you know, just compared to many of your other roles that you've, you know, you're such a distinguished actor. What has been like to play someone like this, who completely has lost his humanity along the way?
Well, I feel sometimes I've been cast as a sort of dashing leading guy, and I feel in some ways I feel like a character actor trapped in a leading man's body. And so this character allows me to sort of get into an area I wouldn't normally be cast in. So I've relished that, but I haven't relished, as people might relish playing nasty people. I haven't relished actually that part of his psyche, because it's something that I'm reminded of when I come off set. I read an article, I hear something has happened along the lines that a Fred Waterford might do. And so I just feel like in the world of Atwood and Bruce and our dystopia, I don't feel I've ever really escaped it. And especially as I have 2 young daughters and an amazing wife, and the show has definitely refocused and recalibrated my appreciation of the psyche of women and how important they are in my life. And so playing someone like Fred, you know, I feel there's a big part of me feels kind of ashamed that this is what I might have to show my daughters one day, because it is their dad, but it's not their dad. But there are themes that are so pervasive, sadly, within our society and continue to be so. And so I found that actually playing it and stepping back into the real world and sort of seeing Fred on the front pages of a news article or something in some way, shape or form, in some industry, in some business elsewhere, that the sort of the awfulness of patriarchy, the awfulness of and the patheticness of patriarchy, really, at its worst, the misogyny, and so it's been difficult, yeah, and I can't wait to shake off that itchy beard, because that's synonymous with Fred, and so yeah, it is weird and tough and ugly, and the tentacles of the man are pervasive.
But it sounds like it's changed your not changed your personal behavior. I think that's a little extreme, but it's made you recognize things that have resulted in a deeper, more meaningful, and more enlightened relationship with the women in your life.
Absolutely. I mean, it's halted me, and it's the narrative has kept me suspended in a way where I'm deeply reflective. Yeah, daily.
And Yvonne, Serena is so fascinating to me because she does seem to vacillate. I mean, not a ton, but you do see these glimmers of hope. And I'm always thinking, Serena, you got it in you. And I'm curious what it's been like for you to play someone who's so complicated and misguided and honestly so lost at certain moments in her life.
Yeah, I think I somewhat echo what Joe was saying, that I think at first it was really confronting to play someone so awful, and I think especially as an actress, as a female, I don't know that you ever really expect to play the role of the rapist, and not that I am the actual physical rapist, but I'm certainly, the character is there and perpetuating the situation, obviously. So it is, that part of it is really kind of confronting, and I think for the first season it took a little while to sort of get used to like screaming at Lizzie in scenes, or just being awful in general in scenes, but now that I'm used to it, I just love getting into it. I mean, this is a role that is one of my most favorite things that I've ever done. It is so intricate and complex, and I'm so grateful to be the person that gets to play Serena. It is just an endless amount of possibilities on set, and when we get to play these characters, and I know everyone feels the same way with the words that we get to speak and the writing, and the actors and all of the people we get to work with, the possibilities are just endless, and it's just so great to be able to sink my teeth into this role that, I mean, can really only be described as epically juicy, as a performer, as an actor.
And there's something fascinating about exploring female misogyny too, isn't there?
Yeah, and
people don't want to talk about, but it very much exists in the culture.
1000%. And what we've been conditioned to as women, even in daily life, even as a mother in my personal life, I experienced sort of this social misogynistic conditioning that I've noticed in women, that they don't necessarily know that they're doing, but they're doing it. And yeah, it's really fascinating to explore.
Maybe Warren, I'll end with you. For people who are going to be waiting for the next season, can you give us any kind of tidbits or anything, or Bruce, what we might be able to expect? Or if you tell me that, will you have to kill me?
We would have to kill you, but hold on a second, because I have an axe right here. I'm going to get it. I'm going to slam it into Bruce's head, and then it's going to spill out all of those thoughts about our future.
Bruce, can you give us any little morsel to tide us over until next season?
No.
Well, I guess we'll have to
Absolutely
end
not.
things there.
That's wonderful.
Thank you all so much, and congratulations on another epic season. And Lizzie, your head must be like, I don't know how you contain it in that little square. Having listened to all your co-workers wax poetic about you.
We do this every day, Katie. It's just a different host. We get on and they tell me how amazing I am. It's good, and it's fantastic.
It's in her deal.
Yeah, it's in my contract.
Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to see all of you.
Love you all.
Bye all. Bye.
Love you.